grab yourself a cozy drink, maybe even a glass of wine, and join us here at the soon to be named book club. Well, welcome back, everyone. We're almost done with the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, and it's just getting more and more intense. That's for sure. Um, as usual, thank you to Heart Illustrations for joining us. Thank you to Book Club Mom for joining us. And thanks for Decal for joining us this time around too. And I, of course,
We missed you.
yeah, we missed you. And I, of
Sorry.
course, am Ian, the hostess with the mostest. Before we jump into this section, thank you. Before we jump into this section, Decal, what did you think about the last one where we left off with Miss Mary's ghost talking to
Yeah,
Patricia?
yeah, at first I was like, what is going on? I was super confused what was happening because I was like, is this real? Is this like a lucid dream or like what is going on? So I couldn't figure that out. But I know like usually if like you kind of like see somebody in your dream and they like tell you something, there's like I think a good percentage of like what they are telling you, like you should probably figure out how to do whatever they're telling you because usually it's got to be important. So I was like, maybe she's just paranoid. But I was also like, it's been 3 years since the incident, so I was like, I don't know. So I was a little confused on it. No, but now I'm not, obviously.
Oh, very fair. Yeah, so this section, in a sentence or less, how would you describe
What the hell?
Kill all the vampires.
Creepy, creepy, creepy.
Too descriptive.
Yeah.
Oh,
Uh,
bleh. Just bleh.
mm,
All right, so as I said, or where we left off with Miss Mary's ghost appearing to Patricia and kind of giving her like a Mrs. Green has the photo, and so we were left in this, oh, does
mhm,
she actually have the photo? And so jumping right into it, we get uh, Patricia on her way to Mrs. Green's house, and we get a little like peek into Gracious K development and how it's taking over old neighborhoods and everything like that. So I thought that was a little interesting
mhm,
detail he threw in there. Um, and of course, we get the whole conversation. Miss Green's completely just over Patricia in general. Like Patricia's just done her own thing for 3 years and kind of let Mrs.
mhm.
Green defend for herself. So that
If I was Mrs. Green, I would be like not Patricia's friend either. Because, yeah, no, for good reason. Mrs. Green has good reasons.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no. I mean, I get both sides, honestly. Like, no, we're not. I'm not saying we can pick sides, but like, Patricia definitely needed to do what she did to maintain her family, if that's what she really wanted. Was it the right move? I guess for her it was.
Depends on what way you look at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yuck.
Or in
Okay.
James Harris's case, a child.
Mhm.
Too soon? Too soon?
I was gonna say there's more than one way for a cockroach to go into your ear, but
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
hated that.
that was
Mhm.
the
I
worst.
know we'll get there, but I hated that.
Yeah, it was awful.
Mm.
And then so Mrs. Green, by the end of that conversation, produces the photograph after 3 to 4 years of no interaction, And I I remember there was like a little like illusion or a yeah, illusion with an A that like Mrs. Green also saw Miss Mary's ghost, but I was
Yeah,
that okay.
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mrs. Green said that she also saw Miss Mary's ghost.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
said the
Mhm.
picture like appeared on her table and then like she saw Miss Mary behind her
Oh, that makes a lot more sense to
Mhm.
me.
or
Right.
something like that.
Yeah.
That's right.
I like the little I mean, I don't know if I liked, but it was a very interesting way Mrs. Green put it, where, you know, Miss Mary's still in hell, so she can appear to save her
Right.
grandbabies. And I was like, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
Cool.
Mhm.
but yeah, and then this, you know, it divulges into, you know, Patricia kind of backing off, but also like, I can't just not unsee what I just saw. And it was, you
Mhm.
know, hemming and hawing on her part, of course, because she didn't want to revert
I
back
knew the
to 30
photograph
years
was going to
ago.
come back. I knew it was going to come back.
Oh, yeah. It had to.
Yeah.
Um, and then by the end of that first chapter we read, they give a, it's kind of like a, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought in the middle of that. Um, they formulate a plan to search his house because Mrs. Green volunteered to clean James Harris's house with, well, as we find out, with Laura.
Mhm.
Um, so they were planning on searching his house for trophies because, of course, you know, along with the picture, Mrs. Green produces a folder with all of these news articles and basically weird child deaths that happened once a year. And of course, you know, at first it was all in that 6 Mile area, and then it branched out into other cities. And of course,
Mhm.
you get the little blurb of Patricia being like, "Well, how can that make sense?" And then, or someone said that eventually. I think it was Slick actually. I don't think it was Patricia. Slick was like, you know, those could just be weird child deaths. Why does it have to be James Harris? Those are completely different cities. And then, of course, you know, another mention of Gracious K, you know, taking over these other
Mhm.
neighborhoods. And so James Harris is pickings, or less.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so then jumping into the next chapter, we get her and Slick's conversation. So, because of course Patricia at this point, Slick is the only one she can trust, which
Mhm.
Mhm.
oof.
Yep.
um, and then yeah, my notes were just actually really tiny. I honestly just was so
Mhm.
enthralled with reading that I just kept reading and just like wrote little notes at the end of it. So,
Mhm. Yep.
Well, and there wasn't like much in the chapter with Slick
Right.
either because
Mhm.
they were
No.
just sort of rehashing things that we already knew and like they were just talking about it for the first time and bringing it back up. So there wasn't really like anything new in that chapter with Slick, but like it was still like those first two chapters kind of like started to really get the ball rolling.
right.
And I finished reading like right before we were supposed to start. And
Me too.
I didn't think I was going to finish reading the sections this time around because I had to read the entire section in like 2 hours, which is a big ask for me because I'm a slow reader. But it just picked up like, and I was just flying through it. And then I got to the
Mhm.
last page and I was just,
Exactly.
so yeah, it's like nothing new right now in these first two chapters, but it's still like real like nail biter, edge of your seat stuff.
Oh yeah. And then, but of course, he still, or the author, Grady Hendrix, he still puts a boatload of detail into their houses. So you really get a glimpse into how their lives have changed and everything else. Like, he's definitely the devil for the details. Like, it's very, it's very easy to read and imagine everything that's, going on.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
in that chapter, doesn't he go into James's past when he was like Hoyt, whatever his name was, where it was like basically like he started this huge financial like thing going on, and then basically once it turned to turmoil, he left. And I'm like, he did this with all of them. So it's kind of like, when is it gonna fall down before they realize he's
Yep.
doing
Mhm.
something sketchy?
Mhm.
Right, yeah, that was, I think, in the last section or last week when you
Oh,
were busy. Well, no, it was fine, but I think they made
They
a comment.
rehashed it a little bit in this chapter, though.
Oh no, yeah, they did, but I'm just saying the um, the detail that he threw in there that makes it similar to that 1928 situation was the fact that all of these people are taking like oh my gosh, they're taking like loans out on their loans essentially, or
Yeah.
their interest on their loans and
Right.
stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I'm like, that's just an easy way to crumble.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, they're making money, but like not at all.
Right.
Right. Mhm.
Um, and so Patricia ended up leaving the picture and the folder with Slick, which was a big ask, and I was really hoping that it was going to be okay.
Yep.
And
I
it
was
seemed
so
like
mad
it
at her for
was,
that.
but oof. Right. And so Slick eventually says that she's in and she'll be there at James Harris's house. Um,
Mhm.
so at the beginning, I thought it was another another interesting detail that basically James Harris tore down the house that Patricia loved in that neighborhood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, just another jab. I'm like, man,
Mhm.
he is just out to ruin Patricia's life.
And he
Yep.
sold off half the lot and then built this eyesore of a house. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so, of course, Patricia enters the house and pays off Laura to not
Right.
call the
Yeah.
manager who would call James Harris.
Yeah.
And um, we get through James Harris's house and it has no character. There's
Mhm.
nothing that says this is his house. Everything is super clean. Like even his clothes are still in dry cleaning bags. Like even she said like no medicine in the medicine cabinet. Just
Mhm.
no, like it's like no one's living there. I'm like,
Mhm.
It's like a
Mhm.
sterile environment.
right.
Mhm.
And then of course Patricia's about to give up. She's about to leave. She's like, this is crazy. He has nothing here, literally. And then
Right.
Mrs. Green, of course, has to look up and see the attic hatch, in which she climbs up, and that was just, ugh, just all the, just everything was just gross. I'm like, why?
Mhm.
I'm like, I know it's an attic, but dang. Um,
That
but no,
whole reading that whole scene was horrible.
yeah, reading the next 3 chapters was
Right.
just crazy.
Yeah, it made you want to itch, take a bath after it.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to.
Yeah.
But I really liked how she made the comment like with her own inner dialogue or monologue that was
Mhm.
like, you have this pristine house underneath and you just have this like bare bones of like completely opposite up in this attic, which I mean most attics are. So like half of that made sense. But then of course she ends up pointing out all of the like old furniture from the old house and the blankets and
Mhm.
everything, and like why would you keep that stuff?
Yeah. Mhm.
Which I don't think we really get an answer.
I'm still waiting for the answer on that, on why
Yeah.
he kept all of Anne Savage's stuff, because I don't feel like we
Well, I mean,
got an answer.
in a sense, it was a trophy because he also made her go mad, right? Because Anne
Mm.
attacked Patricia, right?
Ah, I guess that's right. I guess he did technically kill her too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair point.
With that line of thought, like I don't even I bet James Harris is not even related to Anne Savage. I bet he just walked in.
I doubt it, honestly. And I've been thinking that like this whole time. Like I doubt he was ever really related to her. Like
She was just a
he
convenient.
somehow weaseled his way into the
scapegoat.
community again, like he did when
Mhm.
Patricia's mom was a kid.
Mhm.
Carter's. It's a baby.
Right. Mhm.
This is Bonnie.
Mhm.
Look at the babe.
He's gonna hang out for a sec.
And so, of course, as she's rummaging through all of the the bug, the dead bug, the mouse, the raccoon poop, just
Yeah.
everything.
Mhm.
She finds a suitcase that is heavy.
Mm.
Did we? What did you guys think originally? What it was? Did we think it was Francine's body?
Okay, so I didn't think it was Francine's body, but when like Patricia said that she saw eyes, I was like, oh my god, it's the heads of all of his victims. Like I was thinking he'd save the heads of everyone.
Mm.
But then that doesn't, like, now that I'm repeating that and it's coming out of my brain, I'm realizing that doesn't make any sense because he didn't technically kill a lot of his victims. He just
Right.
drove them mad and they killed themselves.
Right.
The only ones he really killed, or I think the only one he really killed himself was Francine.
Mhm.
Yeah. At this
So,
point.
I honestly thought it was Destiny Taylor that he just took the body of, because it was like the first of like the big like random kills in that area.
Yeah, with how heavy she was explaining the suitcase was, I was like, it's probably a body.
Mhm.
Like it's gotta be.
I was worried it was one of the book club members.
Oh.
yeah, good point.
It was her. She's
She looks in at herself and then all of a sudden we're like, oh my god, we're in a simulation.
It's funny. So yeah, so of course she's, frantic after finding the body and it's this whole thing. And then of course James Harris has to come home. I was so stressed. I'm like, what is going on?
I gotta say though, the suspense when Patricia was in that attic and James Harris got home, I was like, I was flying through the pages, man.
Yeah.
It was so well written.
Yeah, this was phenomenal.
Yeah.
You
really felt like you were in the attic with Patricia.
Oh, yeah, you thought you were Patricia. I'm like, I do not like this point of view. Thank you.
Yeah.
And like when she was like, go ahead.
Good.
I was just going to say when she realized that he was going to see her, even though she was laying down, and then like she just described crawling into that pile of old clothes and blankets. I almost lost it. I was like, I can't do this. That's too much. That feels too real.
I would say there's like a part where it was like she was like telling herself like she like took a deep breath and was just kind of like like just kind of sitting there like that. I think I literally did the same thing when I was reading it because I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, my heart rate skyrocketed for Patricia.
Yeah.
And just
I for sure thought she was gonna get found.
Oh, absolutely. I was like, oh crap. I'm like, how is she gonna get out of this? I think I honestly the worst part of that whole thing honestly was him walking into the house, the empty house, and going, Patricia, I know you're here. I'm like,
yeah,
that's a nightmare. Just
Wow.
And the way the author describes it as like a sing-song voice, I was like, oh my god, this guy is insane. Like somebody just like get him out of the picture right now because I can't. This guy is creepy.
Yeah. James Harris really knows how to be a villain. That's for sure.
Yeah.
ugh. Yeah. So of course, he's looking through the whole house, as we said. Oh God, just yeah, the whole attic scene was just gross. I honestly, I don't know if I could do that. Like with all of the bugs crawling over me. Of course, she's like, "Oh, I interrupted a nest of mice," and then the
Mhm.
cockroach. The cockroach was
Mm.
the worst part of that whole thing. I'm like,
Mhm. Yeah.
I
And like the author just kept using the phrase roach eggs. Like
yeah,
everything was covered in like dust in roach eggs. And I was just like, stop it with the
spider webs
roach eggs,
with
please.
eggs. I'm like, what's with all the eggs? I'm like, knock it off.
Gross.
Yeah. Do you think? I mean, in a time of, or like in a moment of fear, I guess we would all be kind of quiet. But I don't know. I think I would have made a noise, or I would have freaked out. I think I would have found some way else to get out of that situation, or like make sure I pushed James Harris down those stairs so I didn't have to deal with those bugs. But would
I
you?
don't know.
Yeah. What do you guys
I'm
think?
definitely like a freeze person. Like I'm not fight or flight. I'm freeze. So I feel like I could have pulled a Patricia and done it, but not with that many like bugs and mice and stuff.
Mhm.
Like it's impossible to tell how I would actually react, but I feel like I'd be good at staying still. But if a roach called in my ear, I think I'd scream.
Mhm. Mhm.
What about you guys? Would you be able to do what Patricia did?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so
You
either.
don't. Because I feel like the floor would creak or something weird though. Just be like, you're done.
Right.
There's no way.
You're done. Oh, that's funny. So, and then of course that whole suspenseful, like, James Harris, is confident that she's there, and thankfully Patricia just played it safe and was like, he can't see me. There's no way.
Mhm.
And so he ended up, well, I mean, of course she's sitting there now for hours waiting for him to leave or something to happen. And then, of course, she hears some hubbub downstairs. She hears a door slam. And then, of course, at the end of that chapter, the attic door opens and she's like, it's James Harris. I'm done. Like, I'm not crawling back in there. I'm like, there's no way. And oh,
I've
wait,
never flipped the page so fast.
right. I was like, we could have ended at any one of these chapters and it would have been insane.
Mhm.
um, just so before we get to the next part though, even the like how we described the like flakes of cloves in her mouth, I was like, why? I'm like, why is everything just like, how do you know this?
Gross.
Just
Yeah,
gross.
the thing is like
I'm
people can
convinced
barely
he had to have like hid under a pile of dusty old clothes in an attic because he
He's like
described it way too well.
even in movies, like people cannot portray it that well.
Right.
Like horror movies
Mhm.
and stuff, honestly.
Mhm.
Like how do you portray that in words? That's
True.
impressive.
It was very impressive.
I don't know,
Mhm.
but it made me squirm.
Yeah, it did.
That still makes me squirm. Gross. Oh man. But then of course we see that Kitty peeks her head through the door instead of James Harris, which I was shocked. I was like, it had to be Slick. I'm like, Slick Mag I honestly I didn't know if Slick, like at the beginning, of course, it's written as like, oh, Slick called James Harris, and that's why he came home. But the minute James Harris left and like it was a whole thing, I thought Slick came to save her, which clearly we find out did not happen. But
Nope.
were you guys also surprised that it was Kitty?
Yes.
Did we think it was
Yeah.
James Harris or did we think it was someone else?
I thought it was James.
Yeah, I
I
thought
thought it was James.
Mhm.
I wasn't expecting anyone else. I was shocked that it was anyone else but James, and especially shocked that it was Kitty.
That's fair.
Because yeah, like even in the attic, like he closed the door again, and Nora was like, "Patricia, I already found you." Like that.
Mhm.
Like I feel like it was just that, just like the
Mhm.
intense version of that.
Mhm.
Right. He was just toying with his
The
victim.
long game, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Woof. Um, and then of course we find out that Gracious K is on fire.
Oh, gee. I'm
And
so shocked.
and Mrs. Green was the one who lit it, which I thought was
Yeah.
fantastic. I was like, oh, this is exactly what she wanted to do probably for years now. I was like, with
Well,
living right next to
I'm
it.
wondering if the fact that like Patricia didn't return from the attic, I'm wondering if that was just like the last nail in the coffin for Mrs. Green, and Mrs.
Mhm.
Green was like, "Oh, Patricia found something. I'm done. I'm gonna go set it on fire."
Mhm. Well, wasn't Francine her friend? Mrs.
Yeah,
Green's
I think
friend?
so, yeah.
So in a sense, not only
but
was
I
she sort of redemption for her friend, but also again, she's trying to redeem herself in the eyes of all those young neighbors that went missing or ended up killing themselves or whatever happened to them, you know. Uh, and I think Mrs. Green felt a responsibility. So this was her way of getting back at James Harris. And unfortunately, all those investors that were part of, you know, Patricia's circle and the book club. So
but did Mrs. Green see that it was Francine? I don't remember.
she, because Patricia, remember, Patricia got she got Francine's driver's license and showed it to Mrs. Green. And
Oh,
then she
okay.
was going to try to frame James Harris for Francine's murder with the driver's license.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
thought that was after the fact, though. I thought it was mainly just like Mrs. Green ended up because Laura was upstairs and shut the door to save
Mhm.
Patricia.
Yeah.
So I think
Mhm.
Mrs. Green
Right.
was stalling, but knew that Patricia was stuck in that attic because James.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
So I
Gotcha.
think
Gotcha.
it was more of like, oh, Patricia came to help me. Now I
Uh,
definitely need to help her and not leave her stranded.
I gotcha.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
So
Because
Miss
then when she
Green
got
set the
out
fire at Gracious K to get James Harris out of the
out of the
house.
house,
There you go.
and then
Gotcha.
she called Kitty to go save her.
Got it.
Because then when
Okay.
she got out, that was that whole phone conversation, which I was very confused what was going on for a second, where she was like,
Yes.
I grabbed her,
Yeah.
I grabbed her license, we can frame him, like we can make it a whole thing, like
Mhm.
and formulating that plan.
Right.
So I'm still, I don't remember if she saw that it was a body or if or if Patricia told Mrs. Green, but I don't remember, so I don't think so. As a babe. Oh. Um,
Wait, also, Mom, when were Francine and Mrs. Green friends? The beginning?
So so remember, both these women were house cleaners, right?
yeah.
Oh,
I think Francine
So they
lived
had
over
that
there and
bond
went to
of
church.
I forgot about that.
yes. So that's how I recall the connection, right? The church, house cleaners, they're all helping people in this neighborhood. You
Gotcha.
know, a bunch of white women, you know, where their houses were being cleaned by these African American women. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Right. And so,
Nice.
of course, we get Kitty's like, we gotta go right now.
Right.
And Patricia's like, no, 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 no. I'm like, we read these books. We have to cover our asses. You need to see what I saw so you don't think I'm crazy. And
That
like,
was so
honestly,
stressful.
oh my gosh, I was so stressed
Right.
too. And honestly, though, I think if Patricia didn't do that, they would have thought she was crazy again. I mean, other than what happened like later. But for sure, Kitty would have been like, "What are you doing here? You've gone off the deep end again. Like
Right.
she,
Yeah.
like even with her mannerisms towards like, oh, it's a suitcase or oh, it's just this. I'm just like, just wait. So I'm glad
Like I
Patricia.
don't know what I was expecting in reading that chapter, whatever one it was, I think 31,
Yeah.
where it's Kitty and Patricia and they're trying to get out and Patricia's like, no, like he's gonna get rid of it. Like we need to cover our tracks, we need to do this, we need to do that. Like that whole chapter was super stressful. And I don't know like how I was expecting, like once Kitty showed up, like all my expectations were out the window. I was like, I don't even know what's gonna happen. I have no idea where this is going. But like reading that back and forth between them and then all the different things, like I don't know why, but it just like reminded me of the Three Stooges. And I was just like, this is just like a crazy circus where like they're trying to cover their tracks, they're trying to have evidence, but they can't move evidence. And like it was just like this wild thing. And then they're like going out the back door as he's coming in the front door. Like, oh my God, I was sweating.
Yeah, he's a amazing writer.
Mhm.
With this book specifically. I haven't read any of his other stuff yet, but
We should read some of his other stuff because I really like his writing style, and I'm really curious to see what some of his other books are.
well, I
Mhm.
think he has a at the beginning when you did the authors thing. Doesn't he have a new book coming out soon too?
I'm sorry, I don't remember,
I don't know.
but he probably does.
So, but yeah. So of course, Patricia. Patricia's uh, worldly with this whole situation because I'm like I like Patricia was like we gotta cover our tracks, like she went into the whole like crime novel like
Yeah.
book club woman that she used
Right.
to be, and I'm like I wouldn't even be thinking about that. I'd just be like getting out. I'm like I would ah. So of
I
course
thought that too, but then I was like, if he already knew you were in the house, like, does it really matter?
true.
Mhm.
But I was like,
Yeah, but I
maybe
think at the same time, like maybe he doesn't trust Slick 100%. And
Mhm.
so maybe because he didn't find any traces of her there, because as we learn later in the chapters, when he drives Patricia home, like he's trying to spin her this web of stories, which might be true, but like he's obviously leaving out the fact, like what he did to Slick. But sorry, I'm skipping ahead, Ian. But I feel like he wouldn't have tried to spin that story if he believed that Patricia was in the house. But I guess we're not really going to know until we finish the book because something's going to happen and either the suitcase is going to be there or it's not.
Right.
yeah, I couldn't tell if he was like cleaning up their or they were cleaning up their tracks for like their own good or for like Mrs. Green's good, so she doesn't like lose another job because of them.
Well, I think it was all of the above. I think Patricia was just
Yeah.
playing it safe because, because James only thought she was there because of Slick. He never really found the evidence that she was. But if they left the tracks, then it would have been for sure that they were there, and he would need to
Obvious.
clean up or figure something out. So yeah, so
Mhm.
she of course went into whole crime novel mode and grabbed the license. She covered her tracks up in the attic. They vacuumed and soaped the whole stairs and everything else where she went. And then as Soap said, they're leaving out the back door as James Harris is getting in. And the paper towels. Oh my gosh, the paper towels. I was like, just leave it.
But then he would have known
Oh,
because
That's
he
right.
was just
oh my
home.
gosh.
Yep.
So like when Patricia ran back for it, I was like, go, 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 go.
Yeah, no, I was definitely
Mm-hmm.
screaming go, go, go too. I was like, get like,
I honestly thought she was gonna like trip and fall.
oh, I
She was
know.
just be there.
I mean,
And then that would just
James
be the
Harris
end.
dropped the keys. I was like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank goodness. That's hilarious.
Well, we're going to take a short little break and then we'll discuss the last 3 chapters, which were just as crazy. So we will be right back in like 2 minutes. Just bear with. All right, and we're back from our break. I told you it would be quick.
We'd like to welcome you back from that brief intermission.
Right. There we go. Okay. Just making sure we're actually bueno. Yeah, we're bueno. And so so these next 3 chapters are aren't as Patricia intense, but they're intense nonetheless. It's another babe.
I will say though, at the very end of that chapter, where Patricia said we won, we finally won. I think that's a little preemptive, and I want to say it's foreshadowing, and it makes me nervous.
Yeah. I felt the same way. I was like, we've got so much more book left. I'm like, you might have won, but it's a long road, I feel. Like he's definitely not going to make it easy.
He should just won a little battle, not the war yet. So
Right.
Yeah, that's a good.
Got a long way to go.
Right. Yeah, that's for sure. Let's see. So where were we? Oh yeah. So, as we talked about, she calls Mrs. Green in the next chapter immediately, and that's when they formulate the plan of setting the driver's license of Francine into James Harris's wallet, and it was initially planned to be at Kitty's. Yes, I think it was Kitty's.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kitty's oyster party. Whatever that is.
They're rich now. They can do whatever they want.
Right. And so, Halloween is upon us, and, Corey's 17, so she's like, I'm not going out, Mom. Come on. And so she's handing out candy, which I was like, okay, if I came to this house, I'd be disappointed at either of these options, Patricia. I'm like, get your shit together.
You don't like Butterfingers?
I don't. Maybe this might be because I haven't ate them enough, but no, I'm not a fan of Butterfingers.
I mean, they're certainly not my favorite candy, but I'm not gonna turn a Butterfinger down.
No, those are definitely
Butterfingers. You go straight to raisins. You are the worst house I can imagine.
Okay, so the raisins, I mean, that's a no for me, but I applaud her for having a healthy option or an allergy friendly option, but I don't know. I mean, I think her selections for candy were pretty standard.
Butterfinger was the candy when at the end of the Halloween night, and all 3 of us of the siblings sat around and started trading stuff, the Butterfingers went to the parents. No trades. Nobody wanted them. They weren't worth anything on the black market, Sophia.
Well, I'll take all your Butterfingers.
Okay.
And I will not trade you any of my other candies because variety is the spice of life. Okay.
Speaking of variety, I definitely would want to be the dad in the situation on Halloween where you're just getting plastered walking your kids.
Really?
Out.
That's fantastic. We need to put it everywhere.
I think that's so funny.
I know. I love that. I was like,
I also just
every
love
single house, and they're handing out shots.
right.
You have 50 shots by the end of the night.
Yeah, candy for the kids and shots for the parents. The parents are going to be the ones who aren't going to make it home.
Right. Drag them back home as a kid.
And I think there was Sorry, go ahead.
I loved that part in this chapter when he described Patricia going by that one house where the whole family goes all out on Halloween and everybody's dressed up, everybody scares people, they do a whole routine.
Right.
Because that reminded me of a house in my neighborhood when I was a kid. and like it was like the street that we were on like wasn't like a through street, so there was like a street that blocked it, and it was like one of the first stops we would make when we trick-or-treat. We would walk all the way down to the end of the block, and one of the houses that was there always had this big setup in their front yard. Like the guy had stuff on the roof, and like he would have caution tape all around his yard, and like make you walk all the way up the garage, and you would always have like a fake body on a table filled with candy, and like you had to reach your hand in and grab the candy.
Great.
And that like it was just, it's one of my favorite childhood memories. So like hearing like reading that description in the book, I really enjoyed that, because I was like, oh yeah, that was like how trick-or-treating was when I was a kid.
That's
Yeah.
so cool.
We had a couple of those houses, but I think we, for the most part, we avoided that because none of us wanted to go get any of the stuff. We're like,
It's usually just like the people with the chainsaws. I remember that. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Nobody
that was-
wanted a
Yeah.
chance. They were giving out fun-sized Butterfingers.
anyway.
Well, I imagine
Not
that
worth
house
it.
would give out like king-size Hershey bars or
Yeah.
something.
Kids
Like-
just standing at the end of the walkway. What are you giving out?
Literally.
I'm not
I feel
coming
like
up unless
That's
it's
gonna be
worth
the newest app next year, is telling everyone where the bad houses are.
it.
You got any Snickers?
Copyright on that right now.
Is it
All right,
the
cool, I'm
big
coming.
candy bars? Oh man, no, I know.
So I love that.
And like I was like looking at some of the houses, just in generic neighborhoods or even mine, and like the decorations are getting way crazier. And of course, it's because of the popularity of that like Home Depot like 35-foot skeleton.
Yeah.
Oh
They-
yeah.
They've come out with other versions of that now. So some houses had like two of the normal ones, and then this new one that had like a glowing face and a whole thing. And then someone else even had like a werewolf one that was that tall. And I was like, how much? Like, one, how much money are you spending on your decorations? And two, where
So
are you
much.
storing this?
Yeah. Exactly.
Like as an adult now who decorates and loves to decorate for Halloween, because I love Halloween and holidays in general, I love to decorate for. I've already started decorating for Christmas.
Oh my god.
Anyway, as an adult now who decorates, it's so expensive. So like I'm looking back on these like crazy
Right.
like whole front yard houses, because there was like another one down the street from that one, and like
Yeah.
stuff on the roof, stuff in the garage, stuff in the front yard. Like that stuff is so expensive. I'm like, what do you do? You must work in finance or something, because you spend an awful lot of money on your Halloween decorations. Like I made my own spooky garlands like to decorate the house, because I spent like $10 on supplies, and I was like, this is expensive.
Oh, it's like, anyway, back to
Yes, people in the old village are all rich because of their little housing development scheme.
Exactly. Well, I think that's the funniest. That might be the funniest part, is that the people who did the Halloween show were the ones next to James Harris, who were from the north.
Right.
Wasn't even anyone
Really?
from. Yeah, because remember when she was describing the houses in James Harris' house, she's like, "Oh, they sold off a lot to the family in the north." And if it was the house next to
Oh.
James Harris, it was the family from the north that went crazy and did all the stuff for Halloween. Like, baby. Oh. Oh, so cute. Anyway, so of course in the middle of Halloween, right when she's starting to hand out the raisins, so thank God kids avoided that. She gets a call, and at the like nobody's talking, and it was very silent at the beginning, and then she eventually figures out it's Slick, and so that's the whole situation where she's trying to get through this crowd of kids. Which I'm like, Patricia, you're gonna hit someone. I'm like, slow down. But I'm like, I get it too. And then was it that? No, it was the next chapter. She goes into explanation, and then she opens the door is just wide open at Slick's house. So Patricia, already in crime novel mode, goes even deeper and is like, "I'm looking for clues. Like this whole family's probably dead." I'm like, Jesus, Patricia. And of course, the dad and the kids are playing Monopoly, and they're all shocked to see Patricia there, and she just rushes upstairs to go see where Slick is, and it's a whole, she's in the bathroom, she's repeating, "I didn't make a sound," over and over again, and I'm like, oh boy, oof. And at the very end of that chapter, before we get an explanation about anything else, of course Patricia's like, what happened, like what's going on, like whatever, and she's like, if he did this to me, what is he gonna do to you? And she's like, what do you mean? And she's like, James Harris. And I'm like, ooh, chills. Like I knew it already was, but like, ugh.
That chapter was so traumatizing. Like, especially that last part with Slick. I was like, oh my God, this is so hard to read. And then it just got even harder.
Right.
Like, I think we're on the last two chapters of the section that we read.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, for sure. So then, of course, the next chapter, Patricia's being the nurse that she is and making sure that she's relatively okay as much as possible. I guess physically. And then, of course, we get Slick's story, which was just, oh God.
Awful.
Awful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. James Harris is... all of these characters are just written so well for what they are, and it's just it's incredible, honestly. Like, he's such a good author.
Yeah.
But then of course, we get the whole backstory of Slick, preyed on it, and she thought it was her job or God's will for her to scare off James Harris, so he didn't mess with anyone else. And instead of course, scaring him, it just enraged him. And now,
well, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I was just gonna say, like, to us, it makes sense that her trying to scare off James Harris would have never worked, because I feel like since the beginning, Slick has been portrayed as like not like a formidable opponent, kind of like she's just like not, yeah, basically like she's super religious and like she's not really that big of a deal. So like it doesn't surprise me that James Harris was like, no, you can't scare me off. Like, you out of everyone, you don't scare me. Like, maybe Patricia he's afraid of, which, like, obviously in no way justifies what he did to Slick, but like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, I mean, I think Slick was just sort of scared and wanted him gone and was just like, yeah, I can get rid of him by blackmailing him. And James Harris was like, no, absolutely not. And then was a complete and terrible, awful demon of a living undead husk flesh suit.
Yeah, I think their group, I feel like Slick was by far like the weakest link. Like, she should have been the last person who needed to like threaten James Harris. It's just like she has no power to do that, I guess. And like obviously something was gonna happen to her. So I just especially her being like the most like religious and godly and thinking like, yeah, like you said, hostess with the mostest, basically like it was her godly duty to do that. And it's like, oh my God. No, it was not.
Oh my God.
God was not telling you to do that. No.
It was your godly duty to not call him and get Patricia stuck in an attic where she had to crawl under an old pile of musty clothes with roaches and mice.
Exactly.
Right.
Also, it's crazy that Patricia goes in all of these situations without any weapons. Have you ever
Yes.
thought of that?
Mhm.
Like, what are
Yeah.
you doing?
Yeah, I think that's where she does not go with her crime novels and prepares for something.
Like, I'm just gonna go with a flashlight, and that's about the extent of my adventure. And you're like, please no. Anything
Also,
else? Anything at all?
I was so, like, I understand why Slick was frightened and didn't want to go to the hospital, didn't want her family to know what was going on because James threatened her family
Right.
if she said anything. But like, and I was so proud of Patricia because like she was doing a really great job taking care of Slick, and like she didn't even like the way the author wrote it was like everything between Slick and Patricia completely like went away, and Patricia just focused on like making sure Slick was okay and like cleaning Slick up and like making her feel better, and like, and I love that it was written that way and that like Patricia was taking care of her, but at the same time I was like, no, you should have taken her to the hospital, like all of that is evidence. And like obviously this is some sort of like supernatural situation that wouldn't happen like to us, but like in some way like she should have taken Slick to the hospital immediately. Like they could have done a rape kit, they could have done all these things and there would have been evidence, but now it's like Slick and Patricia's word against everybody else's and James' word, and Slick is so scared she's not going to say anything, which rightfully rightfully so, but it's like I feel like I'm really scared that he's like setting up all of these dominoes to just like make them fall down to be like, yeah, nobody believes them. Like this already happened in the book
Yeah.
where nobody believes them.
Yeah.
And now like the stakes are higher. People have gotten hurt, like seriously hurt emotionally and physically. And now I feel like they're still not going to be believed. So I'm really worried about that.
Well, I mean, I think it's just it's setting it up to they have to take matters in their own hands. Like there's no way that they can trust. Like there's no way they can trust these men. Like they already did that once. They already got burned. Like they're clearly so far into James Harris's pocket. There's no point. And so, you know, I mean, this is I mean, I think well, how we ended, I think it's getting to the point of, you know, he's starting to flip the dominoes to make everything, you know, burn. But, you know, we're gonna have to wait and see on that one.
I would like to see James Harris burn. Thank you. Goodbye.
Fair enough. Yeah. So then, of course, we get that Blue was with James Harris all Halloween night, and that whole situation was very interesting. Anyway, I'm not
I don't believe
like I'll do that after I say this. You know, I'm not. I don't know the whole like her the interaction with Patricia and Blue. I was just kind of like, so is Blue telling the truth or not? I'm so confused.
I don't think he is.
No.
No, I don't think Blue's telling the truth.
Sorry.
Can't tell if he is or not.
Yeah.
I don't, well, and if he's not, like, he's definitely not giving her the full story because this is why I don't think Blue is telling the truth. And this is also happens based on what happens in the very last chapter we read, but I won't.
Yeah,
give
we
that
can
away.
just get to that. That's fine.
I think something is going on with James Harris and Blue based on everything we've already learned. And I think Blue is too scared to talk to his mom because she's been so distant and like the last 3 years because she's had to rein herself in to like stay with her family. And I think that the reason Blue has like retreated so much and like has started getting into all this dark stuff is because he has this like huge influence with James, and like James has something on him, or I don't know. But I think in some way James Harris has control over Blue so badly that Blue is so like maybe like James Harris is kind of like brainwashed Blue or something into thinking that Patricia's like the bad guy and like Carter's the bad guy, which like kind of. But I think Blue is just so scared to actually tell the truth to his mom, because he actually says, "You wouldn't believe me if I said anything anyway." And then he decides to go back upstairs and do his homework, which is what he says. So he and before that happened, he said he was going to go back to James Harris's house. But then he says that to, like, he stops, he says that to his mom, and then he walks back upstairs. So that's why I think he's like not telling the truth. And I think it's just because James has made him so scared of his mother.
That's a good.
That's my hypothesis.
Yeah, that's a good one. We'll have to see how that plays out. And then so the very last chapter, we're in a new book. Men are from Mars and women are from Venus. And so, right off the bat, Slick is going to the hospital. And basically it's autoimmune disease is what they're guessing. And of course, especially I would say, I mean, that was piggybacking off of the 80s. So anytime anyone heard that, it was a whole, AIDS talk. And so that, of course, with a, godly woman is not going to fly well. And of course, as godly as people sometimes be in churches, they love to gossip. So, Leland, I
don't like Leland.
These men are just
take them down.
Yeah, all the
take thumbs down for all the old village men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you say, Decal?
Sorry.
So all the men in this book are trash.
They really are. I'm just like, trash. Oh my gosh. I'm like, let's worry about your wife instead of what people are saying. But
exactly.
It's
whatever.
It's like the next book we read, we have to not read a book where the men are trash, or else it's just gonna keep perpetuating.
But
yeah,
they're the most we have read. Fun to read, though.
I mean, they make good villains, but it's so frustrating.
Yeah, also, like with like Slick's husband, it's like if she has AIDS, wouldn't everybody assume that about you too? Like,
right. Well, I think that's what he's worried about more than his wife. He's worried about
He's more worried about his stupid little reputation than he is about his wife.
Exactly.
And he's spinning it to Patricia like, oh no, like, what's gonna happen to Slick? Like, don't let anyone know, like, this is going on with Slick. Like, people are already talking. Like, he's spinning it as if he cares about her, which, like, I doubt he does.
I mean, he does, but it's just a little two-faced deal. Because, of course, right before she went to the hospital, he's like, I wouldn't know what I would do without her. And I'm like, well, then act like it. Like, Jesus.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting to see like half of the book club back together in the room, and like Mary Ellen was picking up on something, but she didn't know exactly what. But she, of course, unlike all these other husbands, played along properly. And then, of course, Patricia made that fateful decision to go home with James Harris instead of like stay with Slick. And just that whole he's just a scumbag. That whole interaction with Slick that James Harris did, I was like, ugh, just ew.
Wait,
well, it's just gross.
Before she went home with James Harris, though, didn't they talk about something happened to Kitty, though?
They said that Horse is basically, well, I think Horse is kind of drinking more and things are going on. And then, but Kitty, because of she saw the body, she's like freaking out about her kids too and making sure that like she knows where they are and they're safe and everything else. So I think Kitty is kind of spiraling.
Yeah, I don't think James attacked Kitty, but I think she's definitely like going off the deep end because she saw Francine's body. And then I think that's probably causing a spiral where she's like, oh my God, 3 years, like 3 years have gone by and we were right in the beginning. Like we were all right. And I think she's probably freaking out about that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so, of course, they have a little conversation in the car. And that's when James Harris is kind of trying to set up, distrust, even though I mean all these women should distrust their husbands anyway. But but basically he is like, oh, it was Leland all the way. Like he's with other girls and it really is AIDS and it's this whole thing and he drops the bomb that Carter's doing it too and blah 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 and I'm like, my goodness.
Which I wouldn't be I wouldn't be surprised if James was telling like a little bit of the truth. Like I don't trust him. He's
fair.
a piece of crap. But like and that's a nice way of saying it. But like earlier on when the beginning, like when we picked back up after those 3 years, there was, I don't remember what chapter, but Patricia was talking about how women would call his phone or whatever. Like, and so I wouldn't be surprised if James Harris is telling the truth, but he's not telling the whole truth because he's a liar and a manipulator and an abuser and a vampire and an awful, terrible existence of a creature. Just
right. And so thankfully Patricia makes it out of that whole conversation. Even though honestly, I'm very confused what James Harris's end goal is. Like I know like distrust like ripples the waves, ripples the calm, but like the last time with Miss Mary, it was kind of like he just disappeared and no money came from anything. And this time it seems like he's really trying to just ruin this whole village. And like, I could understand, I guess, because Patricia's definitely messed with him, probably way more than anyone else has. And of course, she's kind of figured it out, and he knows that at this point.
So he's probably got a vendetta, which is why he's being so cruel.
Right. Maybe why he stuck around so long too.
Yeah, but I'm just as curious as you are what his end goal is.
I think it's like one of those things. It's like keep your friends close and enemies closer. It's like I feel like he needs to know exactly where she is and what she's doing at most points of the day, if not at all points of the day, because he doesn't know what's her next move. Right.
That's fair. Yeah. And then of course, Patricia drops the license in the car. I hope that comes back to play correctly.
Go, Patricia.
Go, Patricia. And then we get to the very end of that chapter, and she's woken up in the middle of the night by motherly instinct, I'm going to assume at this point. And she hears a door or a window opening and she's like, ugh, she's like, Corey's sneaking out. What the heck is going on? Of course, Corey's not home because he's never home. So what the heck is going on? Oh, it's a babe. And so she walks into Corey's room ready to catch Corey out the window, and it's James Harris instead on her inner thigh.
On top of her 17-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And this man is a grown man. And if not a grown man, he is like centuries old.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying that we didn't already know this about him, but like, sorry, I've got a tug of war on it, but like, just awful. Awful.
Yeah. So what's gonna happen next? Well, I mean, the book is ending. We're at the very end now. We've got 60 pages left. So where are we going directly from this? Like what is Patricia gonna do? And then how are we ending, do you guys think?
There's got to be some last stand here. This is it. Now it's personal with Patricia. This this is her daughter, right? And before it wasn't somebody else's kid, but now it's hers. This is it. She's going after James, no doubt about it.
Right. Well, do we think Patricia is going to prevail at the end, or is James going to slither away, or is he gonna win even?
I sure as heck hope she's gonna win. I'm gonna lose it.
Like, how do you kill him? I guess. Like, if he goes to jail, he's gonna live on forever.
Stake through his heart and burn him. I don't know. I'm like
I
assuming
didn't even
some Buffy
think
the
about
Vampire
that. If he
Slayer.
goes to jail, he's gonna live.
Right.
That's hilarious. I didn't even think
Or
about
he'll
that.
escape. I mean, he's a vampire.
Well, yeah,
Right.
he would probably escape, but like the thought of him just being stuck somewhere literally forever is just kind of funny.
A fate worse than death.
Yeah.
Right.
Stay there for the next 12,000 years.
Really?
So what is a Patricia win for you, Soap?
Well, immediately I want her to like stop James Harris from assaulting her daughter. Like,
Yeah.
I want her to like give him the business. Like, immediately that's what I want for her.
Mm-hmm.
As far as like an overall win, I won't be satisfied unless James Harris is dead. And I don't care how it happens. I don't care if law enforcement is involved. I don't care if National Guard is involved. I don't care if it's just Patricia. I want James Harris dead. Like, I do not want him alive at the end of this book. And if he is alive, I will riot. And we will not be reading another Grady Hendrix novel.
What about you, Decal? Who is going to be on top by the end of this book?
I don't know, because I feel like James Harris has been on top for the last, however, 100 years, just about. So it's kind of like, how do you stop somebody like that? You know? So, like, obviously, I want Patricia to win, but I don't know how that's going to happen, and like, how do you kill a vampire, sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
because it seems like now he's able to go out in the sun and everything, which you're like, since when were you able to do that? And I think they did mention it somewhere in the book that it was like, since when can you go out in the daylight, you know?
Yeah, that's what she said. She's like,
what's happening? So
Yep.
He's just been getting stronger and stronger over the last 3 years because he's been killing children.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's how he's able to like keep going, you know?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, if we're following how this book has been, it's something going to be gory. It has to be. Like, it's going to be some big event. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be weird. I'm hoping Patricia ends up on top. I think it would be a disservice to her if she doesn't. I don't know if that means James Harris is dead or if he flees or something goes on. So I'm very interested to see what exactly happens. Do we think, I mean, other than James Harris dying, do we think anyone else is going to? Is someone going to be a casualty? Is Slick going to make it?
I don't think she's gonna make it. Because I think everybody else that this has happened to so far has gone psycho, and she might not die from the disease, but she's gonna die some other way for it. And I think it's just gonna be like if she were to make it out of the hospital, just like going back to the church and being like scrutinized and all that other stuff. I think that's probably gonna just be the end of her.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope it's one of those things where like if they actually kill James Harris, then like it's reversed. But I don't know.
Well, because at this point, I think she
the
stands
book
to
club.
lose both of her children.
Yeah.
Like, because it's clear he already has attacked Corey. I think there's something going on with Blue. I think he's also probably attacked Blue and has been attacking the two of them.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I
think another.
I don't know how it would be reversed.
why I think Slick would die is just to make a point to the husbands finally that this is actually serious and you've been wrong for this many years.
Mm,
Should have listened to your wives. You're all
Yeah.
stupid.
fair
Look
enough.
what look what you've done now to one of our friends or your wife, right? And it's because of you guys that this happened. So
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're running out of time, so we're gonna wrap this up real quick. So,
Okay.
so we are finishing the Southern Book Club's guide for slaying vampires. We will not be streaming next week, so it'll be 2 weeks from now to get everyone to be able to catch up and just join us. Of course, next week for us in the US is Thanksgiving, so we will be with our families doing other stuff. So, so we will reconvene and finish this book in 2 weeks. We will have our new suggestions to vote on hopefully this weekend, and we'll get all that together for everyone. And it'll be a grand old time. Bring it in the new year with a new book, so that'll be fun.
Woo.
As usual, I'd like to thank Soap or Heart Illustrations for joining us, along with, of course, Decal and Book Club Mom. You can find me along with Decal and Book Club Mom on our Discord. And of course, if you have any other suggestions for books, you can do it in our Discord chat or even any comments on videos and stuff like that that we post. Where can they find you, Heart Illustrations?
I have an Instagram. It's just Heart Illustration 7. It's where I post all my artwork. So check it out.
Worth checking out. She's amazing. And of course, I'd like to thank Botsy, our little IT person, who helps with our videos. And of course, he streams on Fridays usually, and I usually am just joining him playing games. So, but we will see you all very, very soon. I hope you have a good next 2 weeks finishing this book, and I hope it's super exciting for everyone as much as it has been for us. And thank you for joining either us now or later. And see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.